yesterday's class is about what anthropology means and the history and development of the discipline, especially in the Renaissance period in Europe, and how anthropology grew as a colonial discipline. And then we also discussed about uh, discussed about how anthropology as a I don't know where the sound is coming. So anthropology as a discipline and its core objectives, and what are the objectives of this particular paper that uh, is to be covered. So this is what we discussed, and again, then we also discussed about various branches of anthropology: physical anthropology, sociocultural anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. I gave you very general introduction about that, and then briefly we discussed the areas of physical or biological anthropology and different branches. And we have to discuss today. Sorry, just a minute. So we discussed what are the different branches coming under physical or biological anthropology. And then today we shall discuss two important areas. One, what are the other areas of anthropology where fieldwork as a tradition, fieldwork as a common tool to understand human variation or diversity, and then how comparative method is one of the tools to be used in anthropological fieldwork or in ethnographic research. And then would also discuss different traditions, history and development of three remaining branches: social and cultural anthropology, prehistoric archaeological anthropology, and then linguistic anthropology. Very briefly, then we move on to the second part of your paper that basically discusses about what field means, what fieldwork means, and what are the different tools, techniques, methods used to understand different social questions that anthropologists deal. So, in physical anthropology, we studied as uh, paleoanthropology that deals with fossil remains to reconstruct the human history, then paleoprimatology to understand from fossil remains how primates grew, how pre human animals grew to give us a clue about our past. Then we also discussed the branch as osteology, the study of bones to reconstruct human history as well as to understand forensic aspect of human society. Then human genetics, a study of inheritance pattern in human populations and how diseases that has uh, uh, inheritance as major root, and then human variation, how people living in different parts of the globe vary from each other physically or biologically. And then we studied human ecology, how humans cohabit with other biotic and abiotic or living and non-living beings around them, and what are the relationship they have. They have social relationship, they also have political relationship and biological relationship with animals and plants, and including human groups around them. And this complex interaction brings different kinds of cultural issues. That is the facet or area of anthropology. Then we also discussed about forensic anthropology as a branch of physical anthropology that deals with collecting evidences for legal jurisprudence in order to solve legal issues, criminal issues. what are the materials that anthropologists, especially physical anthropologists or forensic anthropologists, collect by including criminology, that is the social aspect of crime, to understand the behavior relating to crime. And finally, we also discussed demography or population studies as another branch of physical anthropology uh, that tries to understand fertility or birth, mortality or death, and migration that affects almost all human societies all over the world, and these dynamics of change, population change, and what are the aspects that anthropologists can study. So, this was all about physical or biological anthropology. Then comes sociocultural anthropology. Sociocultural anthropology is the second major branch of anthropology that deals with the cultural aspect of human or the social aspect of human. And this is the second major branch. So, sociocultural anthropology, also known as sociology or cultural anthropology, is an established area of anthropology. It can clearly be stated as principal discipline which concerns itself with the comparative study of culture and society. As we discussed yesterday, whenever you study the other culture, the other than your own, then you always bring a comparative approach to understand the other culture, and the way in which physical anthropology devotes itself to study the physical and biological facet of human. So social and cultural anthropologists, their concern is in the cultural diversity of human and their societies in time and space. As we discussed in detail yesterday, anthropology is study of man in time and space. Time means evolution, space means variation. So, anthropologists are interested in understanding evolution or how gradually human as an animal have changed. And space means variation, how people living in different parts of the globe vary from each other with respect to their physical feature or biological constituent of the body. Similarly, social and cultural anthropologists are also interested in the gradual change of society, how societies were formed, how societies changed to become what it is today. If you can, generally speaking, if you can imagine the society that you are living today was different from your father's generation, grandfather's generation. So, similarly, what was the society 500 years back, 1000 years back, 5000 years back, 10,000, so on and so forth. So, you can go to study the initial stages of human society and culture, how culture was formed, how culture was propagated, how culture transmitted from one place to other. So this is what, and how culture plays critical role in making people different from each other or similar to each other. So this is what is the main area of research or inquiry for social and cultural anthropology. And so it is also many people study, especially in Europe, Germany and France, especially in Germany, it is known as ethnology. Ethnology is also can be called as social and cultural anthropology because that deals with the study of origin, operations, behavior, institutions, and organizations of diverse societies to understand their similarities and differences. And if you look at the history and development of sociocultural anthropology, how it developed, I think it takes us back to the Greek scholar Herodotus, 484 BC to 425 BC, before Christ. So, somewhere around uh, 2500 years back, who provides us with a detailed account of ancient conventions, practices, natural habitats, political scenario, etc., of various cultures and their conflict in his book. He wrote a book called The Histories, and he recognized as some people call him as father of anthropology. But if you look at the proper systematic study of the subject of anthropology, began only the formation of colonies, as I was explaining yesterday. And the actual systematic study of societies or anthropology began with colonization, the colonial expansion of European countries to other parts of the globe, like to Asia, to Africa, and to South America. So, anthropology as a discipline began only with the European expansion. And the stark difference in lifestyles led scholars, intellectual missionaries to study them. So initially, there were no anthropologists. All these observations of missionaries, travelers, intellectuals, colonial rulers, and independent scholars who have gathered a lot of information about societies that they interacted with. And travelers like David Hume, Immanuel Kant may be cited in this context as the people who have, in the initial phase, studied different societies, and from their observation, we came to know, anthropologists came to know about different cultures, and that was quite helpful to them. And the study was highly imperialistic and racist in perception, because since most of the studies were carried out by colonial rulers or those who were from the side of the colonial rulers, I think they went as administrator or travelers, and when they interacted or they came in contact with the native people, so they had this racist idea, they had this imperialistic idea, they were representing very superior so all their observations, many people feel that it is full of bias, and they have a very specific way of looking at them, a specific way of understanding those people that they came in contact. And then the biggest example of development of social anthropology was the deliberation on ulilinear evolution that was advocated by Edward Taylor. Sir Edward B. Taylor in 1832 to 1917. So he's one of the key figures in anthropology. If you want to know the meaning of culture, always anthropologists give the example or the definition of E.B. Taylor. So, and he put forward or deliberated one unilinear evolutionary theory to understand human societies, human culture across the globe. And this model was influenced by Darwin's natural selection. Uh, Dear friends, now you have to look at how the theory of natural selection, or the theory that is propounded by Charles Darwin, to understand how animals and plants, especially animals, have evolved from simpler form to the complex. So that very idea, that very theory of biological evolution has also influenced people who were looking at the society as human society and culture, not biological processes. But the theory of biology, like Lamarck and Darwin, especially Darwin's theory, greatly influenced social thinkers. So that also had great influence on E.B. Tyler. So as Darwin's talked about natural selection, like there is, I said about overproduction, development of trade, there's a competition, then there is uh, survival of the fittest, and the one that developed specific trait, then they could survive. So the nature selected individuals who were so-called strong and able to maneuver the situation. The theory of natural selection came in. So similar idea has been used by E.V. Tyler to say that human societies, like biological beings, like animals, also societies have also evolved from simpler form to the complex. So unilinear evolutionary theory that was propounded by E.V. Taylor. So what he said is that the first idea postulated that human beings evolved culturally from primitive to civilized. He said human societies traveled from primitive to society. And the second idea postulated that human beings developed the same thoughts depending on their needs and requirements, irrespective of their physical separation in time and space. What does it mean? It means like with Tyler. So all those who believed in evolutionary theory of human society thought that one, he said, from simpler to the savage to barbarism to civilized, he said maybe it is not that from one place it has transmitted to other, but independently wherever people live, irrespective of their physical isolation, they also grew from simpler to the complex. And then comes people like Henry Mann and then Louis S. Morgan. They have a fantastic work in the form of a book called Ancient Law, which was published in 1861, and Ancient Society, which was published in 1877. So were based on their own investigations and travelogues of their time. So they combined their own observations, investigation, and also combined secondary resources in the form of travelogue that was written by many travelers in different colonies. They collected all those and tried to understand the human psyche, human mind, human culture. So they too were supporters of this cultural evolutionary theory and played significant role in the development of social anthropology. So you have to remember, apart from E.B. Tyler, there were other figures like Henry Mann and Louis Morgan. And in fact, Morgan's evolutionary model of humans going through the stages of savagery, barbarism, and civilization played forth in the growth of this school of thought. Other notable cultural evolutionists were James Fraser, W.H.R. Rivers, Carlos Seligman, A.C. Haddon. So these are very, very important figures in anthropology, especially in the initial stages, who supported the idea of evolutionary model of changes in human society or evolutionism. And however, this theory received much criticism from other contemporary scholars of that time. This came from theorists who believed that cultures, while evolving into a greater identity, also sometimes get degenerated. Because all these people that I have named, they have talked about unilinear model of evolutionism of society or culture, where degeneration was not taken into account. So all these people who critique these theorists, they said sometimes the culture can also get degenerated. So they're not taking into this. So this group of scholars was referred as a diffusionist. So these people were called as a diffusionist. So they were of the view that human beings were by nature generally uninventive. Their argument was normally human beings are not inventive, they're uninventive. And a culture having grown in a particular area spread to other areas by diffusion, migration, infusion, and borrowing. That means if one culture developed at one place, then it will diffuse to other places. It's not that independently they will evolve from simpler to complex, but one complex place, one complex culture will also diffuse to other places. And that is why they had a belief that there are certain sites, certain areas, certain geographies, certain places and cultures which are superior and it will diffuse to other places. And through the process of diffusion, migration, infusion, or borrowing. The main supporters of diffusion school may be divided into three based on their geographical and national identities. What are these three? One is the American School of Diffusion, second, British School of Diffusion, and third is German School of Diffusion. So the main propounders of this school of schools are Smith, then W.J. Perry, Robert Louis, Franz Boas, who is the father of American anthropology, then Clark Whistler, L. Kroeber. All these people, they are the supporter of diffusion school of understanding changes in societies. Excuse me, just for Sorry, yeah. Yes, and Franz Boas, who is considered to be to have played an important role in development of modern sociocultural anthropology, completely denounced the unilinear evolution as a model and emphasized that humans and their societies are to be studied by conducting extensive fieldwork, by living with the group studied. He was also of the view that all cultures were distinctively different and that they were understood and viewed on their own and not to be compared with others. So, this is very interesting and very significant. You all need to keep in mind. Then the evolutionary model talks about gradual change of society from simple to from savagery to barbarism to civilized. So gradual increase from simply simpler to the complex. And Franz Boas and others, they gave the idea of diffusionism. So diffusion is because there are some central places from where this cultural changes have been diffused to other places. And Franz Boas, being a proponent of diffusionary model, he believed that he completely rejected evolutionary model and emphasized that human and their societies to be studied by conducting extensive fieldwork. He said independently there are many places in the world. He gave the example of Greece, gave the example of Chinese civilization, then Eastern like Indian civilization, and from where these were the citadel or the center of development, and from where all those cultural practices were spread to smaller areas. And he said that is why it is important that anthropologists go and study those independent communities and society through fieldwork by staying with the people for a long time and then study them. And if you look at the current field of study in cultural anthropology, so there are many others also who came in. I think it started with, for example, Bronislaw Malinowski was the main advocate of this fieldwork because he emphasized on fieldwork, especially long-term fieldwork and use of native language while conducting fieldwork, and then also denouncement of unilinear evolutionism. He said societies did not grow at one place, rather at different places, and we need to study them. And in early 20th century, scholars like Malinowski, who was the main advocate, he emphasized on society's function on the basis of the need that they fulfilled. And his theory of social existence was termed as functionalism. So he propounded a theory of functionalism, how functionalism is a good tool to understand human activities and behavior of a specific culture or society. So his idea was known as functionalism. The theory was known as functionalism. Then there are others also, like A.R. Redcliffe Brown, who studied the Andaman Nicobar Island, Nicobarese, and Andamanese, and he propounded the theory of structural functionalism. And Franz Boas studied Baffin Island. Malinowski studied Trovian Island, and Redcliffe Brown studied Andaman. So these are the things. If any of you is taking of UGC NET JRF examination, so please remember all these things. Who are the important figures in social anthropology, and what are the major theories they have propounded? What are the important findings they had? What are the books they have written? Who are the communities that they have studied extensively? So these are the three key figures after evolutionism and diffusionism. One is Malinowski, Bronislaw Malinowski, then A.R. Redcliffe Brown, then Franz Boas. Redcliffe Brown studied Andaman communities. Boas studied on Baffin Island, and Malinowski studied the Trovian Island. So Boa was also the pioneer in influencing and inspiring many of his students to build up a theory to study the sociocultural anthropology in early 20th century. That is 1930s. Around 30s, Boa influenced. Only he only did not focus on this kind of extensive study, but he also influenced a lot of his students like Margaret Mead, Ruth Benedict, Cora Du Bois, Ralph Linton. These are the people, very famous anthropologists, American anthropologists. They were influenced by Franz Boas, and they drew selectively on Freud's psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud's psychoanalysis. And in the late 30s, so 20th century, that is 1930s, 40s, then you have a Boasian model of studying society. Then two ideas, one based on ecology having a powerful effect on culture, and second being the means of production influencing society's behavior, which gave credit to material culture. So there was another great interest developed by anthropologists is studying the man's relationship with ecology, with other animals, plants around, living and non-living being around him, and then different. So he talked about ecological model, and another is production, how the means of production influence society's behavior. And the first idea was advocated by Julian Stewart, and then and he wrote a book on theory of culture change. And latter idea was promoted by anthropologist Leslie White. Leslie White was more of how production from the environment influence society's behavior. This is by Leslie White. And then another archaeologist, Gordon Child. So these were the people who talked about study of material culture. So you have evolutionism, you have diffusionism, you have structuralism, you have functionalism, you have structural functionalism. And then you also have people focusing more on study of material culture. How culture, material culture. Material culture means any kind of artifact. Suppose in agriculture field you have a plow. So that is a material culture. If you have a fishing net, that's a material culture. And in contemporary period, anything, mobile, fan, refrigerator, everything. These are all material cultures that has been produced by man. And by studying these material cultures, the materials used, the functional aspect of it, can talk about a society and the mental frame of people. So, so they have studied that. And then you also have because we are talking about how anthropology, the history and development of this field, and then you also have people like Mary Douglas, we have Clifford Geertz, who have also talked about linguistic and symbolic and cognitive anthropology, different fields. Then you have people who have focused on because apart from this, there are also many theoretical things that that was developed around other fields like psychology, sociology. For example, Marxism, Karl Marx idea of equity and other. Then you have feminism, then postmodernists, post-colonialism, post-structuralism. So there were many people who also talked about these ideas. That those ideas have also influenced anthropologists. For example, you must have heard about Derrida. You must have talked about Michael Foucault, Marcel Foucault. Then you have Jacques Lacan. You have Simon D. Beauvoir. So all these people, they have contributed immensely to social science theories, and those theories have been taken by anthropologists, and they have used that as tool to understand human society and culture. And then we come to the third specialization, that is called archaeological anthropology. So archaeological anthropology deals with the prehistoric period. This is what we discussed in the last class. So talked about what happened before history. So by taking all the artifacts, cultural artifacts, for example, stone tools, bone tools, tools made up of different metals like iron, copper, all those things, how human societies in the prehistoric period used those tools to form their society, to survive. And today, archaeological anthropology also deals with paleoanthropology. Paleoanthropology means by taking fossil remains, fossil records, you reconstruct the human society, the human interaction at that particular point of time. And then ethnoarchaeology, then settlement archaeology. How and why people settle at a particular place, whether it was near the sea or near the river, near mountains. So, what are the evidences we have so that people try to reconstruct? And if you look at the history and development of prehistoric archaeology, it's very important part of archaeological anthropology, where origin and development of human beings are studied through certain stages based on their characteristics. So we use the word prehistory to denote a stage before history, where no material or knowledge was documented in any form, especially writing. Because you would also appreciate that you do not have much evidence. Let me give you an example from paleoanthropology. In paleoanthropology, what do they do? Suppose if you want to reconstruct the kind of humans were living, suppose 5 lakh years back, or 10 lakh or 1 million years back. So, what kind of human society was there? They were not like modern human, Homo sapiens sapiens as we are, but they were of different features, different height, weight, and how we know that, how they looked, whether they were walking on 2 feet or whether they were standing erect. So we know it, much of it from the evidence collected from bones, because many of the skeletal evidence that we get from unearthed from different places all over the world. So we get only fragments of those stones, whether it is part of skull, part of jaw, or teeth. So only from very small fragments of those bones they used to reconstruct the size, the height, and from the burial places where the dead bodies were buried, from the circumstantial evidences that they were collecting, from that they would reconstruct the society and the kind of, for example, if they find a special necklace being in the used as a necklace for a person, and if they they get suppose 15 evidence, but they get only one skeletal remains having a specific metal being used as a necklace. So they would say that they would interpret as that person probably is the head man or the important person in the area. So those kind of evidences are collected from prehistoric archaeology. So, archaeological anthropologists try to find and explain the origin, growth, and development of culture in the past. For this, as mentioned above, experts take help of tool remnants, of materials like pottery, ornaments, artifacts of different kinds, of stones, of bones, of different metals, to understand the ability of a particular past culture studied. For all these burials, where much of the remains are found, turned to be best place to investigate, and anthropologists do. And what are the current field of study within archaeological anthropology? So they're interested in understanding human past rather than concentrating on material remains or on the techniques to remove, recover them. And as such, in the United States, archaeology is also considered to be one of the main branches of anthropology, because many people focus on prehistoric period. So that's a fashionable and very attractive subfield, especially in America. So while trying to know about archaeological anthropology, we also need to learn about different areas of subject which it deals with. So paleoanthropology is one important area of study where people who lived in the Paleolithic time are studied. Evidence on which this study is based are skulls, remains, bones, burial grounds, etc. And we have also mentioned that above that the archaeologists study environmental evidences also to understand impacts of culture on environment and vice versa. Let me give you one example. What paleoanthropologists do, paleoarchaeologists do. By studying, suppose, human bone, they would also get a clue what kind of diseases those past people were suffering from. They got affected. If there is a lot of holes in their bones, so they would say that, and by studying typically those bones, they osteoporosis was a kind of disease. And if they found a bone being fractured and then again rejointed, then they would say that people had knowledge of ethnomedicine, plants, and which had medicinal values. So all these things were very, very important for those periods. In archaeology, when we concentrate on material remains of particular society, specifically that on culture as a whole, it can be termed as ethnoarchaeology. If you look at a specific, suppose if you are studying a specific community, so what kind of archaeological tools or artifacts they use that help us to understand their culture as a whole. So that would be termed as ethnoarchaeology. And there is then you have neo-archaeology or processual archaeology. This study involves studying the processes by which human lived, how humans in the past did things like create artifacts, and how they finally got decayed. If you want to look at the gender angle from paleopathological studies, people have interpreted it as like uh, the hunting gathering stage, or earlier than that, male members used to go to the jungle for hunting, and female members, especially during their pregnancy and those period 4 5 months of period, so they stay at home. So when they stay during their leisurely period, so they have leisurely period to invent, to discover new things. So that is why females are the best inventors or discoverers of things compared to man, because they have more leisurely time compared to man. So all those evidences from cultural artifacts or tools give us the clue about the gender angle. And then the fourth branch of anthropology is linguistic anthropology. So this branch will talk about the linguistic anthropology. So linguistic anthropology is an interdisciplinary science in anthropology. It deals with the study of language and how it can be viewed as part of cultural reality in human society. As we discussed yesterday, so language, because human beings are the only species who have language, a very complex language, because they have sound, they have symbols, they also have characters to explain those symbols and sounds. And it can be codified and it can be transmitted to other members of the society. No other animal has that. So to understand how language play an important role in forming societies, and because if you look at the linguistic classification, we say that a group of people who came, who known as Aryans, from the Caspian Sea, and then some of part of them went to Europe. Part of them also came to India. Then those the language that was spoken by the Europeans and contemporary Indians living in northwest frontier and northern part of Odisha, India. So they speak same language. So language is a clue that also talks about human evolution and human variation and human migration. So anthropologists take linguistic anthropology as a major clue to understand those. And there are many people, because if you look at the tribal societies in India, most of them, they have their dialects, but they do not have their language. So many of the languages are also dying or being fossilized. So how to revive all those? And if you look at linguistic anthropology's field of study, it's talking about in 1980s, the concept of language ideologies gained ground with earlier works of scholars like Valentin Balsoniv, Mikhail Bakhtin, and then you have Roman Jakobson. So these are the figures in linguistic anthropology which talked about the formation of syntax, grammar, then linguistic, and then how language becomes an important tool to understand human culture. So, with this, I think we finish different branches of anthropology, and then we move on to the emerging frontiers. So, what are the new areas that is coming up within anthropology, the field of anthropology? Because let me take you to the beginning. At the beginning, we say that anthropology started as a colonial discipline. Colonial administrators used anthropological knowledge or tools to understand people of different culture that they wanted to rule. But anthropology, the way it is practiced now, is no more like the colonial era. It has changed to a great extent. Now anthropologists like are also become collaborators or partner of the government in policy formulation, in understanding not only tribal or simple or rural societies, but also studying different kinds of so-called communities like corporate sector, understanding companies, understanding behavior of pharmaceutical companies, IT industries, or maybe coal mining industries, all those different kinds of, because they believe that it is not only limited to understand the simple societies, because the study of man is also evolving, the societies are also evolving. So anthropology should also incorporate those societies which are being formed now in modern era. So all these development programs that I was discussing yesterday after Second World War, so number of grants were coming to poorer countries from developed countries for different kinds of projects in the field of agriculture, in medicine, and health. So they were also requiring people having anthropological knowledge, especially anthropological tools and techniques, to understand the cultural practices, the societal values, norms. So that is creating hindrance. So a new kind of understanding was required within anthropologists to understand new kinds of societies. For example, nowadays, uh, uh, people who are patients. For example, there are certain diseases which are called neglected diseases. So, the state or the government or society do not give much importance to patient groups who have few in number. For example, people suffering from Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, patients who are suffering from sickle cell anemia, thalassemia, their numbers are very, very poor, very, very few. And most of these populations are from marginalized groups or poorer communities. But if you talk about, suppose, diabetes or cardiovascular diseases, these are the diseases of the affluent society. So, people who have a lot of monetary power, who have political power, who have a lot of resources, they can influence the state to prioritize their funding for research, funding for healthcare. And those who are small in number, but those diseases are of very debilitating nature. Since their number is very less, it is very difficult for them to influence the policymakers. So that is why anthropology is also acting as advocates or advocate. They are doing advocacy for the marginalized groups. They are becoming the voice of the voiceless. So, so that is what is in current scenario. This is happening. And in contemporary period, anthropology is also looking at the management of corporate world. So how, because they're looking at a company. For example, if you talk about Indian IT sector like TCS, so how TCS has a very different management model compared to XYZ company. So how, what is the relationship between the employees and the employer? So that also gives a lot of clue about the success and failure of a company. So anthropologists work on it, the particular corporate culture of a particular company. Sorry, can I just take 1 or 2 minutes break?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I've come back. Dear friends, what we were discussing is so, what are the recent trends in anthropology? What anthropologists do? We have started from the colonial period where anthropology was to understand, was practiced by colonial rulers to understand the culture that they were going to learn. But now, in 200 odd years, anthropology has moved from looking at civil societies, regionalized groups, tribal groups, to understand the urban people as well, and the new kinds of formation that is coming with corporate culture. So they are looking at also organizational behavior, how people working in a company or an industry, they also behave. What is the relationship between the workers or the employers and the employees? And and what are the cultural practices in this? And many of the anthropologists also study hospital as a field, because this is what we will be discussing in the next section. So in anthropological sense, what is a field? Field is a place with action. Field is a geographical location with people. So and fieldwork is a major instrument through which anthropologists understand the other culture, other society. So now the nature and culture of studying societies have also changed from simple societies to understanding the complex ones. For example, if I examples from my own work, I think I was looking at CROs, contract research organizations, because these are the companies which are helping hospitals for clinical research trials. If you know that drugs or medicines are made or new medicine come to the market after 10 years of gestation period or 10 years of scientific discovery or new findings. But once that is tested and come to the market, the clinical trials in four phases, phase one, two, three, four. They recruit patients to to do the trial on the new drug. And they would, in the first phase, they will recruit only 25 to 50, then 100, then they will test it and phase it in large number of population, and in the fourth they will test it in the larger population. So there are some companies, they work as some companies, a big pharmaceutical company, to do the clinical trial. So what I want to emphasize here is, so anthropologists are not only interested in understanding or the indigenous groups. They are also interested in what is happening in the postmodern era, what is happening in the complex urban setup, and they take these companies as a society, as a village, as a culture. So this is what should also be in mind. Anthropology has also changed in last 200 years or so, and also increasingly play an important role in policy making and governance. I think what they were doing in the colonial
Excuse me, sir.
period, so they're doing it. Yes,
Sir, voice is breaking.
voice is breaking. I think
Yes, sir.
maybe it is because of connectivity. Is it okay now? Hello, hello.
Yes, sometimes it's breaking. Now
Yeah,
audible,
there is some
but it's
construction
sometimes
going on
breaking.
in the nearby. Some work is going on. Is it better now? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes, sir. Now audible.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. If you have any problem, just you can just raise your voice or just write a message in case there is some problem. Oh, I think sir, audio is not clear. Anyone facing voice issue? Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. I think I was going on without because it was muted. Okay, let me repeat. I think yeah. So what we discussed in the first block was about how anthropology grew from colonial era to the modern era. In the colonial era, anthropologists were deriving lot of information or data not based on their own understanding and living in the community, but from the books and reports written by different kinds of people. For example, the travelers during the colonial periods, the colonial administrators, and the Christian priests who went to for conversion of religious conversion, or they were propagating the philosophy of Christianity. So they came in contact with a lot of people. They have written a lot of books and records, and from that, the earlier anthropologists were analyzing those reports, those travelers, and they were writing books about other people. But later on, anthropologists themselves they realized that what they are writing is not a correct depiction of the society. So that is why they need to go and stay in those societies, cultures, or places to have a better understanding of the people. So anthropologists grew. And what else also we'll be discussing in this section is also how the tradition of fieldwork grew in anthropology, how fieldwork become an instrument to understand other culture and other people. And what is a field and what is fieldwork? If you know, it is okay. If you do not know, let me make a very simple definition of it. Field means a place with action. Field is a place where a lot of activities takes place. Field is a geography with people. That there is a location where peoples interact with each other. And anthropologists are interested in understanding those people with relation to the place, the physical place. And it is also for anthropologists, field is considered as similar to the laboratory for the scientist. You know that life scientists or physical scientists work in a laboratory. So they have a lot of chemicals and they see what the chemicals react. So similarly, for anthropologists, a field. And field can be a tribal village, field can be a urban colony, field can be for example, field can be a company, field can be a hospital. So, did you hear when I was discussing about clinical trials? Can anybody answer? When I talked about the CROs, contract research organizations, and clinical trial, did did you get that? Hello, I can see Avijit, Arpita, Barsa. Did you hear when I said about?
No, sir.
Oh no. Okay. Okay. Let me repeat that example. I did not know that I was muted. Okay. What I was referring, and I'm just giving a context, a background why fieldwork, which is the core objective of this paper, and what is a field and why fieldwork is important. Field is a place with action. It can be a classroom. If you want to understand the behavior of student, you need to study different classrooms. Suppose I would like to, in a college or university setup, if I want to understand who are more punctual, student who are living in hostels or who are day scholars coming from their home, who are more punctual and why? What is the reason? If this is my question, then I need to go to the class, meet people who are staying in hostel, and also meet people who are coming from their home, then compare. I need to interview, I do a lot of observation, I use a lot of anthropological tools. So what I'm trying to say is classroom becomes a field for me. This is a, if I work there to do my research to understand the behavior of the students, then that becomes field work for me. And for many people, especially for traditional anthropologists, a tribal village or a rural village becomes a field because they go there, they stay very, very long time. Some people stay for a year, some stay more than a year, along with the people to study them, to understand the insider's perspective. What do we call in anthropology as emic perspective? There is ethic perspective, that you have researchers or outsiders view. Then you have emic perspective, the people's view, the people's perspective, the people that you are studying. And then by taking people's perspective, you that helps you to have a holistic understanding of the society or culture of the village. So that becomes a field work. You stay there for a long time along with the people to understand them. To by studying them, you understand their culture. So that is a field work. But the nature and character of field work has changed over the year. That is what we have discussed in a different way in the first part. And in the second part, I will give you some examples. I was giving the example of my own work. I was working on two different areas. One, on contract research organizations that help hospitals or clinics for drug trials. I was also studying a stem cell technology used by hospitals. And what I studied is, I did not study a tribal village or rural village. I studied a company that is creating those therapies. I was studying companies who were doing drug trials. So similarly, anthropologists are in contemporary period focusing more on studying corporate culture, companies, hospitals, so all these different kinds of things, which was not there in the earlier stage. But fieldwork has become an integral part of anthropology. Without fieldwork, there is no life in anthropology. So this is what is important for all of us to know. And then coming to the second block. So fieldwork from the foundation of discipline of anthropology. And somebody called Clyde Kluckhorn, very well-known anthropologist, he said anthropology is like a great mirror in which man looks at his own diversity. So anthropology is like a great mirror in which man looks at his own diversity, and this pursuit is carried through fieldwork. Because this is a mirror, you see how you are different. And by studying another society, another culture, you compare your own culture, how you are different. And that can only be done through fieldwork. So anthropology is basically a field-based discipline. Without this core experience of anthropology, no one can become an anthropologist. So fieldwork is a must. So many of you might have done, if you have done anthropology earlier, you must have done fieldwork if it is a regular course. And if you have not done it, maybe you will be required to do that. And if it is there is a chance, please do it. And how? What is a field work? People go to the field. Let me explain to you a little different from what is there in the book to have a sense of what field work means. Then we'll come to the book. Field work means, let us imagine students of anthropology go to study a tribal village. You plan to go. Suppose you go to a district called Mayurbhanj. You go to a place called Shamakunta. And if you go before you go to Samakunta to study, suppose the Bhumija tribe, how Bhumija tribe live, how is their economic organization functioning, how their political organization making decisions, how their healthcare facilities are there, how the uh, ethnomedicine practiced by the tribe is changing with the in with the coming of modern medicine, how people deal with those changes. Suppose these are the questions with which you are planning to go and study a village called Shamakunta in Mayurbhanj district. So that means for you, Shamakunta village becomes the field. And if you do the field work, the people of Bhumija or the people living in that village becomes your target participant. And if you do not know anything about the villagers and the village, so you are required at the first stage, you are required to do some reading about, to get some minimum information about them, also collect some information about their uh, geographical location, and then you go to the village. Once you go to the village, you are a stranger, you are unknown to the people. Then how do you go and stay there, meet people, talk to them? Then you ask specific questions that you are interested in. So what you do is you go on the first day, you meet all the key informant, key people, especially the village headman, who is also the traditional headman of the village. You have to meet him. And then the key informant in the village, the dai who is helping in the delivery, the village headman's wife who also takes many decisions on behalf of many women, the Anganwadi worker, the Asa Didi, the teacher in the village. So you have to introduce yourself in the village. That is called establishing rapport. R-A-P-P-A, R-A-P-P-O-R-T, rapport building. Rapport building means developing relationship between with the people that you are going to study. And relationship means you are developing trust so that they know your objective, they cooperate with you to tell something about their own society and culture. That becomes helpful and useful for you to do a lot of studies to gather information about your central question. So once that is done, then what next you do? Next is you do a mapping of the village. Suppose you are studying Samakunta, then you go and map the entire village. Where are the streets? Where are the important persons? Suppose where is the school? Where is the temple? Uh, where is panchayat office? Or where is sub center of health center? How far is the high school from there? How far is the college? All this basic information you gather with the help of local informants. And then the next stage is you do the household listing. You list or enumerate the number of houses that is there in the village. The next item is you do the household census of the village. You collect the census to understand the age and sex wise population structure of the village. Once you have collected, done the household census, then you know who are the people and what is the suppose age group wise, how many adolescents are there, how many infants are there, how many newborn babies are there, how many pregnant women there, how many old age people are there. So once you have those information about the village, now it is easier for you to make a plan. If you want to understand the health seeking behavior of people, health seeking behavior means, I'm just giving example so that you understand what fieldwork means. If you want to understand the health seeking behavior, so how people behave when they go to seek good health, if they fall ill or sick, so what do they do, where do they go first, second, third, how they get cured and how they come back to normalcy. You will find in tribal areas which is a little different from your, maybe different from your own area, when people fall ill they would go for home remedies, and those home remedies are based on the cultural knowledge, the indigenous knowledge system that they have, which may be quite different from you. For example, if the small child is having cramp, then what they will do, yesterday I was giving the example of chenko, like they give the hit in an iron rod around their navel portion. They believe that if they do, the child will get cured and he will be stronger when he becomes adult, and he will be free from all kinds of diseases. And if the the pain persists, they will believe that the god and goddesses are not happy with the child. So they would go for propitiation, sacrifice a goat, sacrifice a hen or something like that. So they have a very different belief system. And if it doesn't work, they will go to the shaman or the priest. And if it doesn't work, then they would go to a herbalist or medicine man around. And thereafter, they would prefer to go to the modern hospital. And they would initially try to avoid going to the hospital because of economic, cultural and other cultural taboos or economy related issues. So it will be very interesting to map and to see the trajectory how people move from one place to other in seeking good health. So that is health seeking behavior. And if you want to do that, then you have to understand which are the age group who fall ill that can give us good clue to understand the health seeking behavior. Then it will be interesting to understand the small children like the infant. The perinatal period, like first 28 days, that is critical for the child's health. Then you have infants between 1 or 2 years. Then you have pregnant women who are more vulnerable to fall ill. Then you have old age people who frequently fall ill. Then you can categorize them. But until unless what I was saying, mapping, listing, and household census, if you do not do the census, it is difficult for you to understand how many small children between birth and 28 days, first 28 days, that is called perinatal period. How many perinatal children are there? How many infants are there? How many pregnant women there? How many old age people, 60 plus years are there? So doing household census as part of fieldwork help you to understand the village in a better way. Then what else you do? You use a lot of techniques. Suppose if you want to understand health seeking behavior, how a mother reacts or behave if her child who cannot talk, who cannot speak, she is only 2 months old. What does she do? Then you have to apply different tools and techniques to understand mother's opinion about that, a mother's action in seeking good health. So this is where fieldwork techniques and tools come. So what is the tool to understand? So can I ask anybody, can anyone tell me, if I want to know the opinion of mother why her child is not taking uh, doing the breastfeeding for last 2 days, he's just crying, continue crying, what the mother would feel, and how would you know, and what the mother would do? Can anyone tell me what is the research tool here? It's very simple. No? Sugyani Patro? Anyway, Swati, Jivan, Arpita, Avijit.
Sir, don't
Anyway,
know.
okay, you don't know. Okay, I think this is very simple. When when I finish saying, you will feel that, oh, these are so simple things you are asking. Suppose if I want to know the mother's view or next actions she would do, what I would do, I would apply two tools. I would apply interview as a tool to ask the mother what she thinks about the persistent crying of the baby, not taking breast milk for 2 days. She would say something. What she would say is culturally contextual. What she would say is what she has learned and being part of the culture, part of the society. Maybe for you, you would say that being from a urban society or rural society, which is very different from tribal society, and since you are a literate person, you're educated person, you know that what is a disease, why cramp happens if there is a, suppose there is some infection in his belly, he has taken some food which is infected, so you will go to the hospital. Hospital would do some test and then suggest some medicine. But here the mother may say that there is something, some spirit has infected, the spirit is responsible for this. So from where this idea is coming? This idea is coming because this is a practice that she has seen from childhood, and this is a practice they are still pursuing. And this is how their worldview is. This is how they explain. This is the exploratory model of disease. What is a disease or what is illness, and how they explain that illness. So, in order to understand that, she might have n number of explanation for this problem of the child. So, those explanations comes as part of the culture where she is living. So, this is a collective wisdom of the community. So, this is true to us also. And then, but interview, she may or may not say something. If she comes to understand that you are an outsider, and if she says something which looks very, very conservative, she would not say that. She would say, no, 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 I will go to the hospital. But in practice, she may not go to the hospital. So, how it will happen? If you apply some other tools, like you apply the observation as a tool. What is observation? Observation is seeing and making meaning out of it. So observation can be of different type. One is participant observation, one is non-participant observation, another is quasi-participant observation. So observation is something that you would apply to understand what people do when the child is crying or there is a cramp. So what is a tool in anthropological sense? Tool is something, let me give you a small example. So suppose you have a kitchen garden, small size kitchen garden, where you want to grow some vegetables. You also have five gunta, or maybe if you are all from Odisha, you will understand what is gunta means. Gunta is a specific area of 1750 square foot. So if you have five, means 6,000 square foot area, then you also want to cultivate it. And you have a huge patch of land, suppose 5 acres of land, and you have to cultivate. You have to cultivate brinjal or eggplant in those three things in your kitchen garden, in your this 6,000 square foot area, and then you also 6 acres of land. So in the kitchen garden, and there is a you use fauda or kodala. Okay, then you also use plow, holalangala. You also use tractor. So if I ask you, will you use tractor in your kitchen garden? You would say no, because tractor would be, it requires a big place. Otherwise, it will be economically less productive, and it may not hold that area. So it will not be useful. It will not be convenient to use that. But for plow, in the middle size land, you would use the plow, holalangala. Why you use it? Because all these situations and contexts require different kinds of instrument. The kodala, holalangala, and tractor will be different. So similarly, in research and all these kodala, holalangala, and tractor, these are all tools. What is the purpose? The purpose is lighten the soil. माटी को हल्का करेगा, so that if you put a seed, then it will grow to a sapling and becomes a tree or plant. The purpose are same. Purpose for these three tools are quite similar. Similarly, in social sciences, there are a number of tools, and the objective of this tool is to collect good quality data or information based on which you would answer the question that you have started to do research. You have started to understand the economic organization, political organization, and ethno-medical practices in the tribe of Bhumija of Samakunta village. So you use, and tools are like interview, case studies, focus group discussion, observation of different kinds like participant, quasi participant, and non participant. These are all tools. And schedule is also a tool. Questionnaire is also a tool. But questionnaire is not used part of this fieldwork. Questionnaire is something that is a number of questions prepared, but you do not use it yourself, but you send it by post. Questionnaire is something where the researcher and the participant do not meet, do not talk to each other, but you send it by email, by post. The participant would fill it up and send back to you. They do, researcher and the participant do not see each other. But a set of questions where you interview, and this is a printed questions. It is called schedule question or questionnaire schedule. Or plainly, it is a schedule. So there is a difference between schedule and questionnaire. Questionnaire is set up question you send by post. Schedule is something, a set of questions you go and ask the people in the field. So what we were discussing is about this village that you use a number of tools based on its applicability, based on its suitability to dig good quality data from people. And once you have collected those data, then you come back. Then you analyze those data by also incorporating your own personal experiences in the field and then write a report. So, fieldwork is something anthropologists are known for collecting primary data. No other, because other social sciences also do fieldwork, but fieldwork for them is not compulsory. Fieldwork can also include lot of secondary sources, data from lot of secondary sources. They may or may not use primary source, but for anthropologists, primary data collection is very, very important. That is significant. And secondary is just an additional to that. So that is why understanding fieldwork tradition in anthropology is very, very critical. So, dear friends, you may have by now some basic idea about what is a field and what is fieldwork. So, now let us examine how this started, why this started in anthropology, and how and why anthropologists still continue practicing fieldwork. It started, why it is an important issue. It started because in the earlier phase, anthropologists drew opinions about the other culture based on travelogues report, based on priests report, or based on what people have written, what administrators have written. After that, they were not satisfied with the reports written, the opinions made in the report. They thought we should, if I am writing about a community X, I must go live with the people, study them, and based on their emic, means people's own perspective of them, I should write something. So then, and fieldwork became very, very important component of anthropology, an inseparable component of anthropology. And that started mainly in England or Britain. Then it went to, because Americans in the initial stage were not interested in long-term fieldwork. They were interested in short-term fieldwork. But the British tradition focuses more on in-depth long-term tradition. If it is a long-term tradition, then learning the other people's language was an important component of that. Malinowski is considered as one of the pioneers in introducing fieldwork tradition in India, in anthropology, because he worked among the Trobriand Islanders, where he stayed for more than a year. He learned their language, and he started writing field reports and then books on them. And Americans also slowly realized that short term fieldwork may not give us the insight about the community. They also adopted long term fieldwork practice in anthropology. And then, as I said, for anthropologists, field is considered as similar to the laboratory used by the scientist. Like scientists who observe the phenomena in the laboratory in different experimental conditions, anthropologists observe the people under different social and cultural settings. And ethnography, the descriptive account of people or culture under study, emerge as a product of fieldwork. So all these ethnographic records, dissertations, theses that anthropologists produce, the books that they write, that is an outcome of these fieldworks. And different techniques are used for collecting raw materials and data required for building ethnographic account. Now you come to fieldwork, the study of people and their culture in their natural habitat. And anthropological fieldwork has been characterized by prolonged residence. of the investigator. His or participants in and observation of the society, and his or attempt to understand the inside view of the native people. So it is about talking about understanding the people, studying the people in their native habitat, natural habitat. If you are studying the Munda community, you have to go there, live in a Munda village, try to study them and understand them. And second aspect of it is you have to stay there for longer time, not just survey that other social sciences do. They go to the village for 2 3 days or 1 week or 1 month, they come back. No, anthropologists go and stay there for very very long time. I have a Japanese teacher who has been studying a village in near Khurda for last 25 years. He has been visiting the same village intermittently. He will stay there for 4 5 months, then go back, come back after a year or two, then come and stay there. Same village he has been studying, he has been observing the changes taking place in the village, different aspect of a particular village or particular culture. So anthropologists go for prolonged residence as investigators, and they also use different tools that I gave glimpses of some tools and techniques, and then the view native people and achieve the holistic view, and they give more importance to insiders view. Anthropologists normally they do not have their own opinion about the village, rather they collect the opinions of the people that they study, and then gather it, collect it, compile it, analyze it, and write in the views of people. They would say that this is the view of Ram or Gita or Sita, whatever, who are the people living in the village, because it is their view, it is not his view, it's not anthropology. So that is why they give insider's view, but in a holistic manner, in a totality manner. Then what is the approaches to fieldwork? Fieldwork is intrinsic to the lives of sociocultural anthropologists and equal to physical also. All the branches that I have narrated, fieldwork is an integral part. More so, it is with cultural anthropologists. And there's another very important figure is James Fraser, whose work on religion and myth was completely based on secondary sources of information. It was only towards the end of 19th century did anthropologists start visiting the field to conduct pragmatic field studies. So only during the towards the end of 19th century, around 1885-90, fieldwork done by anthropologists became a practice. And in the fieldwork, another one important aspect is rapport establishment. So these are the things you have in your text, but I'm just giving some explanation to that. So rapport establishment, as I said, building trust with your respondent is very, very important. Understanding the community, the setup, rapport is very, very important, because until unless you develop rapport, good relationship with your respondents in the field, it is very, very difficult for you to get information, gather data from them. Then, as I said, doing creating a census of the field, household mapping, household census are very important part of your field work. And how at the end of World War II and the decline of colonies on the one hand and the development of anthropology in university circle on the other made the access and huge fund for long trips to distant places made it an unreasonable objective to attain for a new generation of students. Rather, the students have now turned their attention to studying newer innovating ideas. So in this section, as Second World War came to an end, colonies got declined, number of colonies. So there is a surge in the number of universities and colleges open anthropology as a subject. From studying the other people as a colonial employee became independent fieldwork tradition started in mainly in India. And people change their approach from studying doing fieldwork to understand the community from holistic, means all perspective, all point of view. There was a change in approach to study to take very specific research questions, to have a specific research problem to understand. So that is also very important. Then comes ethics in fieldwork. If you have get an idea about what fieldwork means, then if you go and study a village and all your participants are strangers, so what are the ethical concerns that one must also keep in mind? I think this will be the last section for today's class. So ethics means taking a moral position, moral base to carry out fieldwork. As I said in earlier section, when you go to a village, what you do, you meet the village headman or key informants. Why? Because you need to explain to them what is your objective, why you want to. Because for you, if you are doing a research for your MPhil degree, for your PhD, or for independent project, or whatever, or your master's dissertation, that is going to benefit you. You are going to get a degree. But if you are going to study a village, interview suppose 50 people over a period of 1 or 2 months, then why the hell the people would give you so much of time? What the benefit they are getting? They're not getting anything. You are killing their time. You are not giving them any wage. So this becomes an ethical issue. Why you do that? So that is why you need to explain to them, this is my objective, this is what I want to do. If they agree, they would participate. If they do not agree, then you have no right to force them to participate in the research. You have to explain them in clear terms. This is my objective. I'm a student. I'm doing it. I will get a degree. Please help me, or please cooperate with me to get information about your own society. You cannot give wrong information. You cannot lie to them. So this is the first ethical issue, because this is a moral issue with research. The first critical and important ethical concept or ethical idea is informed consent. And many national and international guidelines, they also focus on informed consent, because informed consent is certain kind of agreement that researcher and the participant have in all different kinds of setup, whether it is a community based research, whether it is a hospital based research, whether it is tribal, rural, urban, any kind of setup, any kind of field you are engaged with people. So, informed consent means you have to inform the people about the objective of your research, outcome of your research, implication of the research, and the research participant has to weigh or to see the benefit and risk involved in the research. If they are satisfied, they will give the consent. They would agree to your proposal. If they agree, they will give oral or verbal consent, then they will give written consent that I agree to participate in the study, as well as there will be a clause that says that they can withdraw from at any given point of time during the research. So that is what is informed consent. They get informed. The person is autonomous individual, means is in a position to give his agreement or his agree to participate. You cannot take informed consent from minors, those who are below the legal age. You cannot also take consent from informed IFI people who are sick, who are suppose mad people, who have mental illness, who are immobile, like they're patient with very terminal illness. So you cannot take informed consent from them. There will be assent form. Assent form is given by minors, by the parents or legal guardian, and or as teacher, or an and a school teacher. So similarly, for terminally ill patient, the closest family members may give in certain situation, may not give in some other situation. So this is about informed consent. Second is beliefs about personhood, individual autonomy, and decisional capacity. Like the ethical document of any country believe that individual who becomes a participant is an autonomous individual. He or she has to take a decision. He has the autonomy, not that parents or family members or community members can can give the consent. Sorry, just half a minute. Yes, hello. So I was talking about informed consent, and then the issue of personhood or autonomy. So every individual, if somebody is participating in your research, you will treat that he's autonomous. His father, if you are adult, then your father, your teacher, your village headman cannot take a decision on your behalf. You have to take the decision, and you are responsible for the decision you are taking. And the third is protection of confidentiality. So this is also very, very important ethical concept. One is maintaining confidentiality. Like whatever data you gather from the field, most of the time they are very, very personal. Suppose you are asking about extramarital relationship, about suicide, about income, expenditure, very personal, reproductive choices, family planning, all these things. These are all very, very personal issues, personal information that the informant will tell you through your case study, through your interview, through your observation, through many things. And you are duty bound as a researcher not to reveal the information given by individual A to B to a third party, because the person who is giving information is primary, you are the secondary as a researcher, anybody else is tertiary. So whatever you collect as secondary person from the primary, from A, you cannot reveal it to B without his or her consent. And maintaining confidentiality, because his or her identity will be at stake. Let me give you two examples. Suppose the if you are working on a research on family planning or on relationship, suppose a relationship, this is very sensitive issue. If a young girl told you that she has affairs with somebody else and she doesn't want you to tell to others, and in case you reveal it to somebody else, so that might jeopardize her relationship. And if another example is, if you say something, suppose some person has a disease, and that disease she doesn't want to or he doesn't want to tell others, but by chance if you tell others, then it might also affect her chance in the marriage market or in insurance sector and other things. So there are ample example of that. So you have to maintain high standard of confidentiality. How do you maintain it? You maintain it by anonymizing. Suppose the real name of the participant is Sitarani, but when you write, you don't write, you anonymize. You say my respondent number 3, 4, 6. People would not know who is 6. Or you use the acronym. You use instead of Sita, you said I met Ranjana. So you do not reveal the identity of the person. So confidentiality maintained by codifying. You interview 50, so you give them numbers 1, 2, 3, respondent number 3, respondent number 5, 6, 7. So you just tell that respondent number, not her name, real name, because that may also put the people into bring a lot of stigma and discrimination. Suppose you are working in HIV/AIDS patients, cancer patient, other people, or leprosy, tuberculosis. People are very skeptical about the revealing of their identity that they suffer from this. Then the relationship with research participant. Once you develop good relationship with the participants, there is a trust based on which this relationship has been built. So you have to absolutely give credit and give respect to that relationship. At no given point of time, you should reveal the identity so that he or she, and this relationship you have to maintain even after you have closed your fieldwork. Then fieldwork and intervention, and you have to be very absolutely very clear that academic research or as an anthropologist, you are not an activist. Suppose they have a problem of water supply. They have, suppose current example is, suppose if you go and study a rural village, and there are some people who have not received Indira Awas, for example, house building grants from the government, they would complain. There are other groups who would say that for this reason he has not got it. So he would have a lot of complaint about it. But you don't have to go and fight with the administrator or other people to do that, because you are not an activist. Your job is to understand the social phenomena, the social problem that is happening in the studied village, and to document it and to disseminate in the form of report what are the problems lying. But you have to differentiate between you as a researcher and you as a interventionist, you as an activist. So that differentiation should be there, because as a practicing anthropology, you are not. Some anthropologists may end up becoming or may choose to become an activist, but as an academic researcher doing fieldwork, you cannot exercise both the roles. You have to exercise only one role. And then recommendation for resolving ethical dilemmas. So many times researchers give recommendation to the government for policy document. So if you decide to give that, so you should also become responsible for the action done based on your recommendations. So you should be very, very careful of conducting yourself in that. So I think with this, I think this portion finished. So if I have to summarize, so you have to write fieldwork. What is a field? What is fieldwork? And how fieldwork tradition have changed in anthropology from based on reports written on secondary sources to anthropologists get involved in data collection, and how data collection, what are the tools, techniques they use, what are the ethical issues that they should be watchful, they should be careful about to maintain absolute integrity, transparency in data collection. So with this, I would end. I would keep some times for question answer or clarification if you have any. I will wait for that for 1 minute. I would be. I'm willing to take questions. Otherwise, we'll close it here.
I have a question, sir.
Please.
Is interview and schedule are the same?
Okay. Interview can be a schedule. A schedule can be based on interview. Interview is something where that is about a dialogue between the researcher and the research participant, research subject. Okay, because you ask few questions, gather about it, the information about that. Suppose you want to understand how an old man feeling lonely. What is her experience with her children? Whether they're taking good care of her or not. Is loneliness an issue? So you interview is you ask her some questions. Okay. These questions can be open-ended, can be closed-ended, which means you may have 10 questions fixed. I will ask these 10 questions to all old women. But you may keep it open, like you have 10 questions, but some questions are open, like you can devise it, change it based on the situation. So asking questions, getting answer is interview. Schedule is again a set of questions, but they are fixed. You have to just go to the field, do interviews and act. Schedule is a structured format of questions. Is it clear, or should I? This question
Yes,
was
sir.
asked by Swati.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir. So
schedule is a
another
set of
question.
questions. Yeah,
Yes.
please.
Exactly how many fathers of anthropology are there? There are Herodotus, Ast- Aristotle.
See,
There are
many people
so
have.
many. I'm so confused. Yes.
Don't get confused. You have to take it like this.
Yeah.
Suppose some people feel that what we understand by anthropology has already been mentioned in very ancient text, very old text. And Herodotus is somebody
Mm-hmm.
who has given opinion about others, others' behavior, others' features, others' mental ability, and other things. So that is why people, okay, if anthropology deals with this, this has been referred some 2000 years back or 2500 years. So Herodotus
Mm-hmm.
become father. for few people. But it is not like that because anthropology did not start 2500 years back.
Hmm.
Because if it is a systematic understanding of other culture, other people's society, Herodotus was not there. So, so if it is fieldwork tradition in anthropology, people say that Malinowski can be treated as father of fieldwork, something like that. If it is medical anthropology, another branch of it,
Hmm.
people would say that okay, W.H.R. Rivers is the father of medical anthropology. So people have different views because that is the initial kind of information we get about this subdiscipline or discipline. That is why we treat them. But you are right that how many fathers we can say.
Ah, exactly. And there puni English
Middle
school, uh,
Hmm?
English school, American
Hmm.
school, German school. मतलब,
Huh.
there are so many.
See, all
मतलब,
different
uh,
school means they have a different tradition of looking at their own society and other society. How to systematically study other society, so we get a good view of them, a realistic view of them. So that is why there is very different traditions. For example, British tradition will call it as a cultural anthropology, and American would say society. Because what we study about others, they would say this is a society, where a transactional relationship between it. They would say no culture because this is based on culture. So there is a different view, and that is also the beauty of the discipline, because you have very different views, not just one view, and there cannot be one view also because human societies are very very complex to understand.
yes, yes, sir.
Okay, yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other? So if there is not many questions or no more question, then should we call it a day?
No, sir. I have another question.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
is psychoanalysis?
Oh, psychoanalysis is something that is being
Hello, sir.
huh, yes, Shugyani.
Hello.
Hello, yes. Yeah, psychoanalysis, I will say, discuss then. Do you have any question, Shugyani? No. Okay, Swati. Psychoanalysis giving is something that is given by Sigmund Freud.
Hello, sir. I have a question.
Yeah, this is what I'm asking. Yeah, ask the question. Yeah, go ahead. ओडिया इंग्लिश हिंदी जो उतरे पचार.
Sir, I am audible.
Yes.
Sir, actually, can you tell me why there is need of preserving language or why to revive any language?
Okay. Okay, I'll come back to you first. I'll respond to Swati because she asked me the question first. Okay. So psychoanalysis is by Sigmund Freud because he wanted to map how people behave, how people's cognitive aspect, like mental way of understanding things. So he talked about different layers in our mind, like ego, super ego, something like that. So he wanted to explain people's behavior. Okay. So that kind of approach has been taken by anthropologists to understand. Suppose you go to meet a shaman or a priest or a doctor, then you also explain about your disease in explanatory model that has been influenced by psychoanalysis, how people think, how people react to something based on their cognitive understanding. So that has been taken from Sigmund Freud's theory. I think I because I'm not an expert in this field, but this is what I have known. So you can go and read a lot from maybe text in the Google or YouTube to understand this better. And coming to Sugani, you can you repeat the language and then why?
Sir, why there is need of preserving any language or why to revive any language?
Yes, I think. See, this is also interesting question because I think every year some hundred or something. I don't know the figure, but languages means dialects are getting extinct from the world, and day by day
Yes.
the diverse kind of, because language is also one kind of identity, because as individuals we are not free from identity issue. Like you attach a lot of basis for identity. Like suppose you belong to, you are a female, biologically you are a female, so you attach a lot of pride in that.
Yes, sir.
You speak Odia as a mother tongue or Hindi or whatever, so that is also an identity for you. You belong to a specific religion, specific country. So language is also, because you can see language from different angle. One is associated with your identity, and we are also very very
Yes, sir.
possessive about our identity. We, all of us, we would want that, okay, to be associated with a language group. We are fortunate that we have a language, if it is Odia for you, that you have a written document, you have a script, you have written a lot of literature base. But there are unfortunately many group of people, especially tribal groups, who are so
Yes, sir.
unfortunate that their identity from language point of view is in critical.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a language, that can also enrich your own experience as an individual. If you have a lot of literature written in the book, in the book form, or oral tradition that you learn through, from generation to the generation, through your old grandmother, grandfather, so you feel good about it, you feel proud about it. And a lot of knowledge and wisdom that we get through our mother tongue, because that is based on the local ecology. Okay, because many tribals, they do not have a
Yes, sir.
script. They understand their position vis-a-vis the nature. Suppose they would worship a particular mountain, trees, sacred groups. So they are there in the local. That can only be interpreted in their language. If they lose the language, they lose everything. So all the intangible cultural heritage, like your folklore, folk song, music, dance, all these things, they do not have a script, but they inherit from generation to generation. And what is happening in tribal areas, most of the old people, those who are the beholders of those traditional knowledge system, are dying. Young people are not interested. So I
Yes, sir.
went to Bangalore last week, and what we learned from them is, now the young people are not interested. Old people are crying that the majang, the young club kind of thing, dormitory house, and the musical instrument
Mm.
they have, but there is nobody to learn because they do not know the language. Okay,
Yes.
so language is an instrument through which culture transmitted from the one generation to the other. If language is it die, then that culture will also die. The spirit of people, the soul of the people will also die. Yes. So,
Yes, sir.
any question?
Sir, then yes, sir.
Hmm.
Sir, then government will, how government will revive if there is no script or less script of a language?
See, I think this has become a major issue in modern era, because governments are also failing to do that. Because more and more, suppose English as a language. If you look at Odia, day by day the
Because
number of
there are so many
speakers,
languages.
the number of speakers. Suppose a dominant language like Bengali is also facing crisis. Hindi facing crisis because more and more people are to English medium. So globalization of language. But there is also reverse thing happening. Identity politics and other things are going on, but this is very less compared to the decaying or the loss of language. And governments have role because they can develop script. They can introduce, one good thing government has done is introduce MLE in tribal areas. Sorry, MLE is multilingual
What is
education.
MLA, sir?
MLE,
Okay.
multilingual education. Suppose there are some activities or very backward tribal groups, they don't have language. They have
Yes, sir.
sorry, they have script, but they have their uh, language, something that you have a script. But they have their what is
Yes,
that?
sir.
So what they are doing is they're
Dialect.
teaching them not Odia, the lingua franca. They're teaching them in their own language. So they associate. Okay, if you tell them, suppose Chabela Barnabodha, I'm Poduche, so we associate. Orana Moisikana, Asila Marita. So you associate with the animal, the context, but they will not understand anything. until unless you teach them in their mother tongue, especially up to class 3 or 5, for Odia will become a foreign
Mm-hmm.
language. That is why they've introduced MLE, the teachers from their own
Yes.
community. Okay, so this kind of activities may also help in reviving the language.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Sir, another question. What does totality means?
Totality means holistic. Holistic totality means, suppose you put yourself in the middle of the circle. So how many degrees are there? 360-degree means complete
Yes, sir.
view. So in the similar
Okay.
fashion, if you want to study a particular culture, a particular society, or a tribe, you need to have a totalistic view. That is called holistic view, totalistic view, 360-degree view. So in order to understand one aspect of a society, you need to understand the whole. Without understanding the whole, it is difficult to understand a part of it. So that is what is the idea of anthropology.
Sir, generally, one will think studying about society means it is belongs to sociology, right, sir? So, how anthropology is different from sociology?
Okay, yeah. Uh, Sociology, anthropology, in that respect, very close to each other. But
Yes,
sociologists
sir.
normally look at human society, whereas anthropologists look at both culture and society. And anthropologists combine biological aspect of human beings. Suppose when I say evolution of man, anthropologists will
Yes, sir.
immediately look at both biological or physical evolution, which is linked to cultural evolution. Sociologists will only look at the social evolution and cultural, not the biological. This is another.
So,
Third,
sir, can you give example?
yes. Suppose this is a very this is only for just example. Don't take it otherwise also.
Yes, sir.
Suppose
Okay, okay.
go to South India or some. I think all the participants do they
Mm-hmm.
understand Odia? Or it will be good to give example in mother tongue. Na non Odia bachande. Can everybody understand Odia? But anyway, let me speak in English also. No way. Suppose
Yes,
if you
sir.
go to yeah. Suppose if you go to South India, you see people mostly they are sorry, the Sugyani Roshan.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm giving example in English. Sugyani, can you mute him?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we can also understand Odia.
Yes, sir.
Roshan
ओडिया में बुझिपाରୁଛି
Sharma. ଓଡ଼ିଆ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛନ୍ତି
ହଁ ଓଡିଆ
ନା ସପୋଜ
ବୁଝିପାରୁଛି
ଆପଣ ସାଉଥ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆକୁ ଗଲେ
ସାର୍
ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକ ଦେଖିବାକୁ ସ୍କିନ୍ କଲର ଡାର୍କ ଗୋଟେ ଲୋକ ଯିଏ ପୂଜା କରୁଛି ସେ ବହୁତ ଫେୟାର ଅଛି sociologist for a
Mm-hmm.
sociologist that fair skinned person will be very normal. He is part of the society and a member. Sugyani, can you mute? ମୋ କଥାଟା ଇକୋ ହଉଛି yes thank you ତ ମ୍ୟୁଟ୍ କରିବ କିନ୍ତୁ ଯଦି anthropologist ଦେଖିବ same they are also understanding the society but anthropologists would immediately apply the mind why the physical feature is such for this person if it is a Brahmin perhaps the Brahmin has ଆମେ ଜାଣିଛେ ଯେ ରାଜା ରାଜୁଡ଼ା ସମୟରେ ରାଜା ମାନେ ଯେତେବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କର ଶାସନ କରୁଥିଲେ ସେମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ବ୍ରାହ୍ମଣ ମାନଙ୍କୁ ନଉଥିଲେ ସେଠିକାର ପୂଜା ଭାର ଦଉଥିଲେ କି କେତେ ମାନ ନଉଥିଲେ ମାନେ ମୁଁ କାଷ୍ଟ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ସିଧା ନାକ ଷ୍ଟ୍ରେଟ୍ ନୋଜ୍ ଅଛି ଆମେ ରେସିଆଲ କ୍ଲାସିଫିକେସନ ପଢିଲେ ଫିଜିକାଲ ଏଜୁକେସନ people human can be divided into different groups based on physical features जो physical feature କଥା ଆସିବ for a sociologist it will be just normal he would not look at the physical features as any determining factor but anthropologist will see how this straight nose person in a village only one family and ତାଙ୍କର origin ଟା କୋଉଠି ସେମାନେ history କୋଉଠି ଆସିଲେ କାହିଁକି ଆସିଲେ ବୁଝିପାରୁଛ ତ so କାହିଁକି ଆସୁଛି ନା ତାର ଗୋଟେ holistic understanding ଅଛି physical feature can also be linked to a different past language words can also be a hint to explain your history କାହିଁକି specific कास्ट ग्रुप रे गोटे स्पेसिफिक लिंग्विस्टिक फॉर्म थाए केतेटा वर्ड से डिफरेंट कहते सेमानकर जो सोशलाइजेशन प्रोसेस जो लैंग्वेज अच्छी सो दैट मीन्स देयर इज ए डिफरेंट trajectory of migration that you can trace from physical features. This can only come to the minds of anthropology. Sociology को आसीबो नाही कारण सी केवल सोशल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू देखुची होलिस्टिक देखुनी टोटालिटी रे देखुनी एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट टोटालिटी रे देखियो कल्चरल सोशल देखियो बायोलॉजिकल भी देखियो तेनो ताको सेटा स्ट्रक करियो. So these are the small things. And the third example is third point is anthropologists normally try to study simple societies. Simple to complex को जिवे then tribal societies, rural societies in order to understand the evolutionary process. केमिति economic organization टा barter system रू material exchange रू monetary economy का आसिला. किंतु sociologists normally study urban societies. एमाने रूरल और ट्राइबल सेमती किसी ना क्लीयर कट बाउंड्री बट नॉर्मली एंथ्रोपोलॉजी स्टडी मार्जिनलाइज्ड ग्रुप्स स्मॉल स्केल ग्रुप्स ट्राइबल ग्रुप्स एंड सोशियोलॉजिस्ट अंडरस्टैंड द सोशल फिनोमेना ऑफ द अर्बन सोसाइटी कॉम्प्लेक्स सोसाइटी ये माने सिंपल पढ़ते हैं कॉम्प्लेक्स पढ़ते बट देयर इज नो क्लियर कट बाउंड्री इन दिस. ओके
Okay, sir, but still.
ओके आउरी प्रॉब्लम रहिला and the
हाँ
tools
sir.
and tactics of both the ଦି ଜଣଙ୍କର ସମାନ. Suppose sociologist will go for normally for survey kind of study. Quickly ଯିବେ କରିବେ rapport establishment ନାହିଁ କିଛି କିନ୍ତୁ anthropologist will go for as we discussed go for deeper understanding of the society, long stay in the village, studying their language, learning their language ये सब जिनिस କରିବେ. Anthropology ର जो methodology ଅଛି that is बहुत रोबस्ट आ बहुत डिटेल रे ସେମାନେ स्टडी करते वर्टिकली जिवे सोशियोलॉजिस्ट हेले हॉरिजॉन्टल स्टडी करिवे. ऑफ कोर्स ये केस स्टडी नव विल बी सेम बट एंथ्रोपोलॉजिकल टेक्निक्स एंड टूल्स आर डिफरेंट फ्रॉम सोशियोलॉजिस्ट कारण तुम सिंपल सोसाइटी को टोटालिटी स्टडी करिया गले जदि गोटे स्मॉल एस्पेक्ट करिवो कम समय भीतर पॉसिबल जदि टोटालिटी स्टडी करिवो डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग दरकार लॉन्ग स्टे दरकार लैंग्वेज लर्निंग दरकार सेटा कॉम्प्लेक्स एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट माने सिंपल सोसाइटी रो कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी स्टडी करिया चाहते सोशियोलॉजिस्ट माने कॉम्प्लेक्स सोसाइटी रो सिंपल स्टडी करिया चाहते. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So again, I think
Yes, sir.
you should not get satisfied with my answer. You should ask others. You should go through Google, YouTube, others to understand more. It's good that you are asking questions.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Stop here.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.